To be intimidated by it or to make yourself smaller because you think that someone is bigger in a room, it's not going to serve you. Yes, I understand that I am different, but how do I use being different as something that makes me unique to that situation?
Hi, I'm Nick Warner. As a dad, a lucky husband, and as a business coach, I value people and relationships above all else. But next is winning, sustainability, and healthy culture. I've been a business owner for 25 years and served for decades as a special advisor to business and government leaders at all levels. Let's just say I've seen some stuff. My passion and my expertise are helping motivated professionals and businesses find the highest level confluence of what they want in life and business. This is what it feels like to be together at the top. Thank you to our sponsors, Scholl's Brick and Rogaski, Three Bridges Consulting, Kathy Olson at Ships and Trips, and Connect Strategies. Torrey Sims is the founder of WHM Media, and I'm excited for you to get to know her today. I met Torrey in her mid-20s, shortly after she finished graduate school. Torrey's not always had the title or the standing, but she's always been a leader, even at a young age and without actual rank. I would put Torrey in the category of an emerging leader who's also currently leading in big and ascendant ways. I will wager she's smarter than you, tougher than you, more prepared than you, and everyone loves her more than you. So know what's coming and don't say I didn't tell you. Torrey Sims, where are you today? And say hello to the people of Together at the Top.
All right. Hey, Nick. Well, first correction, it's WMH Media, but that's okay. We can repeat it.
Off to a good start.
Yes, I'm in Carlsbad, California, in my home office with my little puppies and excited to be here with you.
Thank you. You mentioned something about Happy being part of the name, Happy Dog, who's behind you somewhere. So since I butchered the name, it's supposed to be WMH. My bad. Tell us what the happy part is. You just mentioned that early on.
Yeah. So WMH Media, my company is named after my dogs. When I started in this industry, I had a dog named Wilson, and he was very transformative in my life and part of really my career and a lot of things that were happening at the time. And then throughout my time in this industry that obviously we're going to cover soon of my journey, I moved to Denver and I got another dog named Murphy, and he is the M. And then when I purchased this company, I had Happy for about a year, 2 years. And so again, just really big parts of all of the things that I was doing, just different moments of my life and how everything came together to purchase this company. And so, yeah, that's WMH Media, Wilson Murphy Happy, and excited about it all.
How fun. All right, let me set this up a bit more and let's really dig into it. Cool?
Yeah.
All right, 7 months ago, Torrey announced to the world she was leaving her latest corporate job in public sector construction management and sales and starting WMH Media. Not only did she start a new company, but she did so by acquiring that company she had worked for out of grad school in her 20s before flying solo, or before flying the nest, I should say, to explore corporate opportunities nationally and internationally. I've been working around Torrey since she burst onto the national scene 15 years or so ago as an editor for Correctional News magazine, one of the holdings she just purchased. She was somewhere between administrative assistant and junior editor at that time, but from the jump, she meant business with whatever she was working on. Torrey's organized and motivated ways changed my posture and brought my elbows up on the table anytime we worked together. Torrey showed up young and brash and loud and fun and smart and eager and funny as hell. And she showed up early and stayed late. And she looked to say yes and to volunteer for stuff nobody else wanted to do, but that kept her front and center and in the mix. Rather than wait until you're 10 years in, Torrey, and have dominated everything and figured it all out, which you will, we thought we'd ask you to share with us 7 months into your new venture as a business owner. We have so much to learn from you. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Let's start with nuts and bolts. We're going to go backward a little bit with your indulgence before we go forward. Attorney, CPA, bookkeeper, payroll, insurance, office space, HR, etc. Talk to us about the importance of external advisors at the start, recognizing, of course, it's different when you start your business by acquiring someone else's business. Tell us about assembling your team and the steps you took to get your company up and running.
Yeah, even when you were just going through that list, I was getting a little bit of anxiety listening to it all because honestly, a lot of areas that I wasn't familiar with getting into this role. And just knowing that I needed all of those things and I needed them to be functioning well in order for me to function well was really important. And I inherited a lot from the purchase that didn't necessarily align with the direction that I wanted to go. And so I knew very early on that I had to get the right people in place and also just ask questions, really ask questions of why are you in this position? What are you doing here? What can you help me with? And understanding what my weaknesses were coming into it, because I'm very honest and authentic in how I approach things, as you know, Nick, from experiences that we've had together and just knowing each other for as long as we have. And I'm always just curious and asking questions. And I think that all just helped to solidify the gaps that I had, but also where my strengths were too, and where I should be spending most of my time and where other people can come in and really help support and rally around me and make sure that the mission that I have in place is being followed.
Ask for help. Interesting. You talk about curious questions, weaknesses, and strengths. I like that right out of the gate. Tell us a little bit about your company. Level set us. You level set us on the name, but rather than me tell people about your company, why don't you do that if you would?
Yeah. So WMH Media acquired Emlyn Media's publication. So we are a full service media company for trade publication. So I cover maintenance, operations, design, and construction for the corrections industry, the school market, so K through 12 and higher ed, and healthcare. So I have a healthcare construction operations publication and also green building. So sustainability, and then kind of covering all of those different markets within that green building sector as well. And then we do everything from print publications. So I have 7 publications a year for correctional news. And then my other publications are digital. We have website, newsletter, social media, webinars, events. So really think of kind of full service marketing for this industry or these industries in the AEC sector. And then we also offer different kind of networking opportunities. And so when I came into the role as well, I really wanted to build up our community aspect of the publication too, because that's a huge thing in this sector.
Yeah, really good. I was going to ask you about this later, but you brought up the broad spectrum of interests you have from correctional to school construction to healthcare and green construction news. You were a mover and shaker in the corrections world as I knew you. For those who forget, I was a lobbyist for 25 years, actually for 30 years in Sacramento. For 25 years, I was the head lobbyist for the sheriffs of the state of California, and I worked a lot in the kind of corrections public safety space. And you were and you are a mover and shaker in that space. But how now, Tori, do you become a mover and shaker? If that's it's a cheesy way to say it, but how do you network and get as deep in these other issues as you were in corrections? How do you handle that?
I think it all is about surrounding yourself with the right people. And the same applies for corrections, and kind of how I came into that market is really through making connections with people, staying curious. It's the same thing applies to the different markets that I cover. And I definitely, in the beginning, we were talking about just some gaps and some areas that I need to kind of work on in this role too, is getting out there and being more front and center in some of these other markets. And I'm really excited to do that, but really laying the foundation and the groundwork for where I need to be spending my time. And so, like you said, in the corrections market, yeah, I know a lot of people. I know this industry. Pretty much my entire career has been in corrections and centralized around that. And relationships are really important. Relationships are really important in really all aspects, but this industry is very small and connected, and people are kind of moving around with different companies all the time, but they stay centralized in this market. It's been a blessing to be able to surround myself with people that not only I'm familiar with, but they want to support me in this role. And being behind those people has helped me a lot. And I think extending that out to the other markets that I serve kind of starts with those relationships. So a lot of crossover from my correctional news brand into healthcare, as you know, kind of lobbying for the sheriffs and being in that public sector space. Healthcare is huge inside of facilities, and they really are becoming healthcare centers in a lot of these jails and prisons. And there's a big component there. And so a lot of those clients and thought leaders are coming over and saying, hey, you have this outlet for us too. This is a new area of business for us. How can you help me? And that's what I love about this industry, about this market that I'm in, is helping people, connecting people, creating that community aspect, saying, yeah, I can do that. I can get that word out for you. I can use your voice. I can put these things in motion for you to help support your brand. And that's what I love about what I do.
Tell me about curiosity. Curiosity to me is like a pickaxe. It's just a word we use until we need to put it in play. And so when I work with leaders and emerging leaders, we talk about probative questions as a pickaxe, as a way to get to the gold, as a way to get to the information. How does curiosity manifest for you when you're in new situations with new people?
My background, I'm a journalist by education. So I think that that set me up very well for this. I've always just been naturally curious. One of those people that probably my parents were like, stop asking so many questions, and the little kids are like, well, why has this happened? Are we there yet? Like that was probably me. But I've always just been a curious person. I've always wanted to get to know people, connect with people. That to me is fun. That's the fun part of my job. And I get to do that all the time. And so it takes a lot of energy, I would say, to kind of keep it up, but it's real to me. So it's not, I guess when I go to a lot of trade shows and events like that where I'm around a lot of people all the time, I get this like high, this like incredible energy because I love talking to people. I love knowing about what people are doing and just to hear stories and why people care about things and why they're doing things a certain way. I always am asking questions where people are like, did you just ask that? Like normal questions where it's like, well, why did you do that? Where someone hasn't asked them that before. And I think that continuing that curiosity, I don't know all the answers all the time. That's literally why I'm asking the questions. And I'm not afraid to ask the questions. And I think that makes me unique in this position and really more prepared to be in this role that I'm in now. Is continuing to ask those questions, whether it's in my internal organization, whether it's a client, whether it's here on this podcast where you're kind of asking me questions. I'm sure I'll turn things around and be asking you questions soon too. That's where I'm comfortable.
Yeah. So, what are your barriers to entry? Why'd you do it that way? When you win, why do you win? What are you looking for? What do you stay away from? What gets your best effort? What gets your team back on their heels when the owner or the client isn't doing well? I mean, that's your, hey, Tori, what do you do? I run a company that has 4 magazines. Oh, okay, that's interesting. Hey, Nick, what do you do? Hey, I'm a business coach or I'm a lobbyist in Sacramento. Okay. And they shake your hand and walk by. That's not enough. It's not enough. It's, hey, I own a company that has 4 publications in various sectors. Tell me more about what you do. And then we can style our answers to taste as opposed to some canned answer. So yeah, your curiosity is really great. And like I said, I call it probative questions at times, but it's invaluable. It sounds like you're describing it as such.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at the end of the day, I provide a service. I also provide products. So I have magazines. I'm a news outlet. And so I want to know what problems, what are people keeping people awake, which is funny enough because we have a column in our correctional news magazine called What Keeps Me Up at Night. But it's all about that. Like, what are the issues? What are you experiencing? And how can we help? How can we come together? So again, that community aspect of let's bring the right minds to the right place and make things happen.
Yeah, really good. Let's go backward for a minute with your indulgence again before we go forward. How did your upbringing and formative years influence your drive and your style?
Well, like I said, I've always been a curious person. I've always been very competitive, very driven. If I set out to do something, you mark my word, I will do it. That's how I've always been. And I also come from a family of small business owners. So I saw the struggle. I saw what it takes to succeed in business. I saw the stressors of business firsthand, and I'm still here doing it. My great grandma, actually, badass woman, she was actually the first woman city council member ever in Boulder, Colorado. And this was, I don't know exactly what year, I'd have to look it up, but back in the day, things were different, right? And she carried on and did that. She headed up University of Colorado's student housing, and she has a big memorial there. And she really paved the way for being a woman in business at that time. And then my parents, they both were small business owners. My younger brother is a small business owner. And so surrounding yourself with people who have a similar mindset as well of what success is, what hard work is, I think a lot of that helps shape who I am. And then also personal experiences as well. I think that oftentimes we talk about, preparing ourselves and having this best resume. Like I have all this education, I've gone to all these universities, all these experiences to build that resume, to be prepared in the role that I'm in or the role that I want to be in. But a lot of times we aren't really focusing on all the other stuff that's around us, which is a lot. and a lot that makes us who we are and unique and how we succeed in life and in careers. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 15 years old. And I think that a lot of that helped me to be more prepared in business. And it came from probably anxiety of it's really life or death if you aren't prepared and you have type 1 diabetes. I try not to be that extreme in business. I know that putting out a news story is not life or death, but I hold things to a very high standard. I think that having experiences early on that forced me to grow up quick has taught me to have responsibility and what comes with that responsibility.
Like what? You talk about factors around you and things that force you to grow up. Give us some examples.
Yeah, I mean, my diagnosis, having type 1 diabetes and navigating that, kind of being different than my friends, having to focus on things that they didn't have to focus on. That's difficult when you're a 15-year-old girl going through high school and, you have to be stabbing yourself with needles during lunch and you can't have the same things that your friends can have. It feels very unfair. But instead of looking at things that way, which if anybody has been, diagnosed with a chronic illness or something that, doesn't seem fair, you can look at it like that, certainly. And if you haven't looked at it like that, like more power to you, because I think everybody experiences those things where it's like, why me situation. But instead of focusing on that, how can you work with it? How can you make it so your life is exciting still? It is meaningful. I think if I wasn't diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, I would be a lot different than I am today. I had to figure out responsibility very, very early on. If I was not responsible, I would probably be ending up in the hospital. And so it really it made me look at life differently. It made me probably even more driven than I was before. And yeah, I think that always looking ahead is very important for me, but being prepared with that too. So talking about my personal life, like when I go out with my friends, I'm always carrying, like, in my purse, you could find pretty much everything that you need to survive in life. But a lot of that is because I have to be prepared. So I bring that with me to the business place as well. I want to be prepared. I think that being prepared gives you a sense of not even relief, but it gives you this sense of security that I did the best that I can to be here right now. And there's always going to be surprises. And it's how you adapt to those changes. But if you can at least prepare yourself for that stage, whatever stage you're entering, I think that you at least have 50% of the recipe figured out.
Yeah, really compelling. Thanks for allowing us to learn from you. Yeah, really, really appreciate that. We appreciate your time. If you like what you've heard so far, do me a favor and leave a 5-star review and share with your friends. We'll be right back. The law firm of Scholes, Brick and Rogaski is a go-to partner for me. I work the most with partner Michael Rogaski. I go to them for business contracts, strategic legal counsel to maneuver through or around complex business situations, HR and employee issues, startup needs, intellectual property protections, collection matters, and recently the purchase or sale of a business. I really like the fact they tell me if they're not the best fit and they give me a warm referral if I need it. Also, unlike so many attorneys, are totally level-headed and calm. I've experienced it like their slogan says, small firm service, large firm result. Contact Michael Rogaski at sbrlawsd.com. Kathy Olson at Ships and Trips is as creative and as willing a travel partner as you can find. These days, you can plan a lot of trips on your own, but for those trips that require more intricate planning, tons of time, or local contacts and savvy, Kathy's the best. My family and friends have worked with her countless times in every travel country, setting, and season you can think of. Contact Kathy with a C at shipsandtripstravel.com. You've always worked for somebody else. What triggers you to go from employee to employer, business owner, essentially? That's a big jump. Most never even think about it. And when they do think about it, they never do it. You actually did it. Why did you do it?
Oh, great question. I have always worked for someone else, and I've always kind of been that person's right hand in a lot of cases. And I work really hard and I joke around a lot and I have fun along the way, but that doesn't, take away from the fact that I am working very, very hard. And I decided so I purchased the company back in July 2024. And before that, it wasn't a snap decision. It wasn't a rash decision. I had been thinking about it and discussing it for probably 5 years before it even happened. And even before that. So even when I was at the company previously, I knew that I could take things to another level. And I wanted to do that. I wanted that responsibility. And seeing things in this market and then in other careers and markets that I covered and that I worked in, there were a lot of things that I liked and that brought me joy. And then there were other things that I was like, wow, I never want to be that kind of leader. I never want to be that kind of teammate. And so having that power to come in and say, I'm going to do things differently and I'm going to treat people this way. And this is how I do business. Having to make those calls, it's an extremely, what's the right word? It's power, but it's not power in the sense that you're creating it. You're kind of extending it onto your team as well. And I think that that was a big shift for me, knowing that someone's livelihood is now under me. And that big responsibility, I take that very seriously in all things that I do for this company and for me in my life. Yeah, that weighs heavy on me. And every decision that I make for this company, I don't just think about myself anymore. I think about everybody around me. I think about the team that I have. I think about the clients that I have. It means more now.
That's awesome. It's funny you set it up by saying, I remember the things that they did that annoyed me, that motivated me, that made me happy and made me sad. It reminds me, I was going to see one of my daughters, who my oldest was in college at the time. My wife Katie said to me, hey, don't forget all the things your parents did that annoyed the heck out of you when they came to visit you. And I think about that and I translate that to what you just said is some of it can be that rudimentary and not every human's the same way, but there's some stuff when you're being managed that's going to suck for everybody. Don't do it. Remember the things that you appreciate. And then I was curious to know, I mean, I would think you'd be, I know you was tough. I know you was on it. I know a million people, and I asked you specifically to be on the show so we could learn from you for a reason. But I know you was empathetic and you have a lot of personal experience. How does your empathy, your care for others and your humanity as an employer mixed with your humility and sharing, like you told me, I'm going to get Botox. I was like, holy shit, I cannot believe she just said that. It's so humble. And then you share the type 1 diabetes. How does that impact your leadership style, Tori, as an employer in particular?
I come to the table how I want others to come to the table as well and how I want to be treated. I think that's kind of the oldest saying, right? Treat others how you'd like to be treated, but it's also how you show up in situations too. I want people to feel comfortable around me. We have one life to live. I mean, as cheesy as that sounds, so going back to the Botox, I mean, I'm going to live my life without wrinkles for that matter. But I think that what we do and how we show up is so important. You don't know what other people are going through. So it takes just as much effort to show up to a situation negative and cold than it does to be happy and energized and open. And so it's how you choose to show up to things. I choose to show up to things the way that I would want people to show up for me. And even if they don't, I know that I did my part. You can't control what people's reactions are going to be, but you can say, hey, I showed up in that environment and I did what I needed to do. And if that person feels good at the end of it, that makes me feel good. That's a bonus for me. Being empathetic is very important for me. And I think, going back to kind of my history and my life and my health, that changed me too. I know that I don't have it as bad as so many other people out there. I actually have it pretty great. And I've been able to figure that out. And I think that that only comes from living and experiences and being put in really tough situations and getting out of it and saying, hey, I have evidence now to show me that I can do that. I can be a version of me that is powerful, is strong, is, resilient. And that's something that I carry with me. And it makes me confident that I can go into any situation knowing who I am.
Let's go. I love that. Where's competitive spirit? You mentioned, where does that come into play? And you put a lot of pressure on yourself as a result?
Yes, so much pressure on myself. I am my biggest cheerleader, but also at the same time, my biggest critic. I don't like saying that I'm a perfectionist. Just honestly, I hate that word, but I do have a very high standard of things. And I would say I have a high standard of things coming from an athletic background. I was an athlete growing up. I have two brothers and a father who always was teaching me sports, and that's how I grew up. I always wanted to, we weren't getting participation trophies. We were in it to win it. So if we didn't get gold, like we were sad at the dinner table. So I carry that with me, but I also carry it with me as what we were talking before and what you mentioned that Katie said. Not all of that was great. I don't want to be an overly competitive person all the time. I don't want people around me to feel like they have to bend over backwards in order for me to say, oh yeah, that's okay. I want people to be themselves, but I want to instill enough vision and plan and lay things out for them where they can succeed. And I don't want to come to the table ever and have people say, oh, I'm afraid to present this idea because, Torrey has such high standards, she's not going to like it. And I definitely been guilty of that before. And so I definitely am more, I think, aware of how I am and how I want to be and how I want to show up for people.
You're super tough and smart. How do you keep people from saying, yes, ma'am, like you got it, Tori, I'm on it, which is helpful, but not super helpful at higher levels. Maybe it's just the awareness you bring.
There's so much power in saying yes, but also so much power in saying no for that matter. And then I'll answer your question too. But I do want to just point out that it, again, with what I was saying about the effort of showing up, like you can show up to a situation negative or you can show up to a situation positive, and it takes pretty much just the same amount of energy. And I think same thing goes for yes and no. I have been saying yes to so many things, which has paid off for me, but I have also known where to say no. And I think that I want my team to understand that about me, to feel empowered to do that themselves. So, to answer your actual question, I think that's how it works. It's a mutual respect. It's having that dialogue and being open. So, going back to just having humility and meeting people where they're at. I want people to come to the table and feel comfortable talking to me about problems, but talking to me about solutions too. So, how can we do this together? Hey, here's the problem. Don't just dump that problem on my door. Nobody wants that. Let's talk through it. How can we solve it together? What are some creative solutions that we can come up with? What are some creative solutions that you have come up with? And let's hear them. And I think that creating an environment like that, it starts from the top. It starts from that leader being able to say, hey, I've either been there before, I understand what you're going through, like meeting them and being empathetic, I think is very, very important.
Yeah, how about this? You get looks like, hey, I'm not liking what I like, teasing it out and going to get it when you know it's there because there's time and place where they're not going to tell you and your awareness will dissolve for a lot of it. One of my favorite book stories is called What Got You Here Won't Get You There by Marshall Goldsmith. As the title implies, different skill sets and considerations come into play as your professional roles thicken up. For example, busy is hugely important in your corporate job, where sales and a bigger geography are front and center. You told me recently you're, quote, learning how to slow down. Why is that important to slow down in your new role?
Slowing down is such a luxury, I have realized. And going from always being a doer, always being a high performer, having these high standards, it's a lot. It's a lot to put on yourself. It's a lot to put on somebody else. And so that's been challenging because it's not comfortable to slow down. And I know that I need to because I can't do everything. My team can't do everything, but I want to. And I have such high ambitions and big goals that I think taking that time and realizing that I can't do it all at once. I can't do it all by myself. I can't do it all with, a small team that I have. And accepting that that's okay. We're still doing a lot. We're still getting a lot done and we're still succeeding, and slowing down and being able to kind of relish in those successes has been hard for me too. I'm not one that really takes a compliment well because I'm always moving. I'm always doing something. And so being able to slow down and look at what we've accomplished and be proud of that for a moment before I get up and go do something else, that's so important. And again, going back to my team, like I want them to realize that too. I want them to be proud of their work. I want them to be able to say, I can slow down too, because Tori's slowing down. That means I can slow down too and look at things maybe through a different lens that you wouldn't have time to do before. Not to say that we're missing any deadlines over here, okay? We're not. But to say that it's okay to slow down. It's okay to look at things in a different way and do things differently.
And to think.
Yeah.
One of the things you mentioned is to think. You're an executive. You have a lot of leadership responsibility. Busy gets in the way of clear thought at times. That got my attention when you mentioned that as an aside, as a parenthetical.
Yeah. Being able to think and taking a moment and saying, wait, why am I doing things this way? I hate when people say, oh, well, this is the way we've always done it. And when I catch myself saying something like that, because I bought a company that has been around for almost 30 years. So a lot of that, a lot of process and just roles and things were always the way that they were. And taking a look, taking a step back and being like, doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. Tell me your thoughts on money and sales. Ways it's been said, scared money won't make money, spend to make money, return on investment. One of the smartest things I heard from a mentor or an advisor of mine was I need to be surrounded by revenue generators. What are your thoughts on spending money to make money and being a business owner around investment and even paying people or going to get top talent? Thoughts?
I think that it doesn't always have to be monetary. I think that creating opportunities, you don't always have to be spending money. You need to be smart. You need to know when you do need to spend money. Let's say you have a software that's creating all these inefficiencies and it's causing this huge ripple effect. Well, is investing in that going to then bolster up another side of your business to create new avenues? Of course, if that's the case, yes, spend that money. But there's creative ways too to get around to do things that you don't have to break the bank. And as a new business owner and someone who has a small team, I need to be smart about my money. I need to be smart about where we're spending our time. So looking at those priorities and saying, yes, this is important to invest those dollars in. And then other areas where it's like, let's get creative. Let's do things different. We don't have to be, the flashiest company, but we have to show up. We have to do a good job. And how can we do that with still protecting the livelihood of my employees, the success and growth of the business? So doing all of that doesn't always have to be, hey, here's $10,000 for this and looking the other way. It's about making smart investments, but it's also about creating new opportunities and being creative with that. And that's fun for me.
What are your thoughts on the last thing I said, which is I need to have revenue generators around me? I had never had that thought till it was said to me and it spun my head around. I had never put those lenses to something as like a business owner or somebody that exists in a boardroom. I don't know if I agree with it 100%, but it really got my attention.
I think thinking about it in just terms of revenue isn't how I would think about it. I would think about it more so, who do I need around me to build up this company? And that doesn't always mean revenue. It really doesn't.
Yeah, great point.
Yes, of course, revenue is what keeps these lights on, but it's not necessarily always what I'm thinking about in every move that I make. And I think that people who are only thinking about revenue every single day, every single minute, yes, I know how much money is in my banking. Yes, I know how much I need to operate this business, but it's not something that I think about with every single decision that I make because you just can't. There's always going to be a risk. Yes, you can make it more of a calculated risk, of course, but having just strictly revenue generators around me at all times, not something that I would say is number one on my list. It's more so people who are going to build you up, build the team up, build the company up, and create these new avenues of opportunity, like I talked about, being creative, being supportive. You want to be around people who do that. You don't want to be around sharks all the time.
Really good. I'm going to benchmark this next part to another book that I love, Nice Girls Still Don't Get the Corner Office by Dr. Lois Frankel, PhD. And the still is because it's a 20-year abridged, I think is how they say it's a new version 20 years in. And they added the still 20 years later. Let's talk about age and gender and where traditionally male dominated construction industries you serve. Even with 15 years in, Tori, you're still a young woman in a male dominated arena. How have you experienced those factors?
Yes, I have experienced those factors. I mean, it's pretty apparent, right? I'm a small girl with blonde hair, and I walk into a room with, 100 executives where 80 of them are a lot older than me, male, and I would be lying if I said that it wasn't apparent. But what I try to do is approach everything where gender, yes, it is there. And I think it's important to point out that 36 years ago, women weren't allowed to even have their own business without a man co signing for them. So, me being 36 years old, that's pretty powerful too. The women that I talked about in my life before, they didn't have those same opportunities that I have. And so, what I do with that is really important to me too. But going back to that, just being in a room and having those apparent biases, it's not really how I think about things or how I show up. So I really like to meet people and know who they are outside of their title, outside of their gender. They're a person. We're all on this earth for the first time figuring this all out together. And so I think that's where a lot of my confidence in a room comes from too, is that, hey, Nick doesn't know what he's doing either. And so we all just really don't know what we're doing. We're all in this room. And that's why I'm so curious too, is because how did you get in this room too? And once you start kind of peeling that back and saying, okay, I don't care if this person is CEO of, this huge corporation. I don't care if this person has 40 years of experience doing something that is, in my wheelhouse too. Yes, you can learn from those people. Like, that's why you ask those questions. But to be intimidated by it or to make yourself smaller because you think that someone is bigger in a room, it's not going to serve you. And so that's why I like to go to any situation. Yes, I understand that I am different, but how do I use being different as, not a selling point, but something that makes me unique to that situation? I think that it makes you more likable too, to approach a situation as, I don't care about your title. I don't care how many people you manage. Yes, I can learn something from you, but it's not going to change the questions that I ask you. It's not going to change my curiosity in the way that I show up to an authentic conversation. A funny story that happened to me right as I bought or as I started WMH Media, I had a meeting with a prison director, and he oversees a state prison system, and a lot of people responsible for it. He's a powerful guy, right? And we'd been emailing back and forth, and we were going to be meeting with someone who had met me before. So knew what I looked like, all that. And I show up to the lobby of this hotel where we're meeting, and I'm sitting there and I'm waiting for this guy. And this other guy comes up and he's like, hey, like he's here. Like, let's go meet him. So I'm like, okay. So like we walk over and I'm in this conversation for like 10 minutes and they're just talking, catching up, and I'm just standing there. And he goes, the guy that we're meeting, he goes, so where's this guy, Torrey? And I, pop my little head around. I'm like, I'm Torrey. And he's like, no, you're not. Like, yeah, I am. Like, here I am. I am Torrey Sims. And he was like, I thought that you were going to be a large man. I love that comment. I love that. Like, my name is a bit ambiguous, so I understand that that could happen, but I just love it. I love the misconception that people can get because I am a female in a male dominated industry, that people just assume that I'm a man, and a large man at that. Like, come on. But I love
You're a lot of things. A large man is not one of them.
yeah, I'm not a large man. But again, I like those misconceptions. about me because it's like, then I get to show who I am and why I'm here. And it's, it's not because I'm a large man.
We appreciate your time. If you like what you've heard so far, do me a favor and leave a 5-star review and share with your friends. We'll be right back. Three Bridges Consulting did the video on the recently rebranded NickWarnerConsulting.com. I really love the video because it helps me sell by speaking directly to my prospective clients. Dennis and Sean at Three Bridges Consulting are high-level storytellers for the purpose of helping my prospective coaching clients understand what differentiates me from the pack. A recent new coaching client literally said to me, "You don't need to sell me, Nick. Your video sold me. I understand what you do and how you'd work with me as a client." That is a true story. You know I love that. Contact 3BC at threebridgesconsulting.co. Ken and his team at Connect Strategies head up my post-rebrand digital marketing campaign. I'm moving up the rankings for business coaches and consultants quickly. Connect is 20 years in the business, and I feel like they're really focused on my account. I refer business coaching clients to Connect too, and I get really good reports on result, professionalism, and drive. Thank you, Connect. Contact Ken at KNECHT strategies.com. You mentioned sports before. I'm going to bring that around to being a female in business. And I know you're a golfer, and there may be other sports you were talking about, like winning the gold medal. You said you were sad at the table. I bet you were mad, not sad.
That's true.
But I'm curious about your thoughts on this. Will not apply to everybody. I know full well it will not apply to some big percentage of our listeners who are not going to take up golf or not going to take up hiking. They do other things, frankly. They go to volunteer. Like somebody told me literally, that's not what I want to do with my time, Nick. So you're Xing me out. I want to go volunteer at Loaves and Fishes. And I was like, my bad. I didn't think about that. But if you can, like, talk to my daughters, for example, about golf as one example, or sports. Like, how is that an entree for you somehow? It seems like it has been.
Yeah. I mean, you're a golfer too. I know, because we played. And it's frustrating. And you still show up. Like, so many times I will start around. I'm like, do I even like golf? Because you have all these experiences, and going back to that evidence as well that I mentioned before in the workplace, but you have this evidence too, whether any arena that you're on, whether it's athletic or business, where it takes that evidence to understand, are you having fun? Do you want to do this? Is that something that you want to show up for? I think that starting in sports from a very young age, yes, it made me competitive. It also made me very patient. It made me always be reaching for something more and keeping that kind of competitive edge as well, always wanting to be better for myself, always wanting to be better for my team. I think that applies so well to the workplace. Not everybody, obviously, who succeeds in the workplace has been an athlete by any means, but I think that it really teaches you discipline, proper discipline of, scheduling your time management, being better for yourself and the people around you, and having a goal and working towards that goal. So you know what your goal is. You wake up, you chip away at it. It's not always going to be what you envision. I know that for a fact when I get on the first tee box, it's not always what I envision. I'm like, oh yeah, like, I'll probably hit it on the green. And that doesn't always work out. And that's okay. And being able to say, yes, I had these goals. They weren't met this time, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to pick myself up and still go have fun, still go out there, still go play with my friends, because the evidence is there. I've done it before. I can do it again.
Yeah, and it also gets you onto the golf course with men at times. Like, get in the freaking golf cart. Don't miss the tournament. If you can putt and hit the ball. I just hate to see women, young women in particular, missing out on these business opportunities in sports and golf. I mentioned hiking. Sports and golf can be a conduit to that. I've seen you do it. I've seen you and only a handful of others do it, but a lot of people get left out. And I guess I'm talking about golf in particular.
So one of my newer employees, she's taking up golf. And one of the reasons why she was taking up golf is because she wants to be able to meet her customers where they're at. And a lot of them are men, what we talked about, being in a male-dominated industry, and seeing the joy and excitement and frustration from her eyes, as somebody who's been playing golf since I was literally 4 years old, I would go out with my dad. My dad's a golf pro, and so I would go out to the course with him all the time. And that was my daycare basically, is Tori go to the driving range. So I did that, and so I have a different lens of what it takes for golf. And watching her have so much fun with it made me so excited. And just seeing her branching out and being like, yeah, I am not the greatest, but she's still going out and she's playing with prison directors, she's playing with CEOs. She's just carrying herself where she's like, you know what? I'm going to have fun. Yes, I'm going to fumble. Yes, I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm having fun. I'm making connections. And what do you know? She was the talk of the tournament. Like, how much fun? Did she shoot the lowest score? Absolutely not. But did that matter? No. And being able to see that made me so happy for her. Also, like, wow, maybe that's how we should think about a lot of things, is let's go out there, do our best, have fun. It's an opportunity, and going and just doing it is already a success.
Yeah, and you mentioned meeting people where they're at, and your staff, your clients. This is the golf course. Like, I really love that as a through line. Meet people where they're at. Find a way to get in that space and meet them where they're at. You don't have to be great; just meet them where they're at. I take a lot away from that. I hope others do as well. So I think we're starting the fourth quarter here, and I have some questions that set up nicely in terms of imposter syndrome. Like we mentioned, new business owner, you're 35, like young in business no matter what. You've always had a leader. I would say, like James Clear says, a leader does not always have the title. He says that in Atomic Habits. You've always been a leader, if not the leader, without the title. But now you're oftentimes the leader and even leading leaders. Tell us about imposter syndrome. Do you still have it? Especially when you're really driving hard and leveling up in almost every way.
Yeah, of course I do. I have imposter syndrome a lot of times. At the end of the day, I am so happy that I made this decision. I am so happy about what I'm doing and the direction that I'm going. But I would be lying if I said that there were moments where I'm like, oh my God, I own a media company. Like, I've never done this before. Well, yeah, like, no shit. I've never done this before. I'm doing it for the first time right now. And so I think I've said it so many times with that evidence of, yes, I haven't had the title before, but again, I don't care about having a title. I don't care what other people's titles are. I'm still going to show up. Yes, I have different responsibilities now, but I think that with that is kind of this new sense of power and ownership that comes with it. I'm still the same person at the end of the day. Yes, I have different experiences now. Yes, I have different conversations. I'm in rooms with people that maybe I wouldn't have been in rooms with before. And that's exciting to me. So it's what you do with it. Like, of course, when I'm starting off something new, it's calculated. It's a calculated risk. I don't have a lot to go off of. It's not this data driven idea. I'm just like, this is going to be really good and we're going to go for it. And that's exciting to me. Yes, it's not always going to work out exactly how you have it planned in your head, but being prepared for what comes at you, I think is important in kind of combating that imposter syndrome. And I tell my team all the time, say yes to new opportunities, say no where it doesn't serve you, and stay true to that. And I think that a lot of that helps with the imposter syndrome, and just always being true to yourself is really important.
You've mentioned mentors several times without saying the word, ways that made you feel, things you don't want to do, things that work for you, things that didn't work for you. Talk to us about mentors, good and bad.
I have had a lot of examples in work and in life of things I wanted to mimic and things I did not want to mimic. And I would say that it's always stronger on the negative side. Let's just be honest. And having good mentors and having seen things that maybe you would have liked to do differently is important to put in perspective. And I think when I come to the table with my team, with a new idea, with a conversation, a one-on-one, whatever it is, where I'm supporting someone else, leading still with that curiosity, I think is what I would always have wanted. but also realizing that what I want all the time is not always what the other person on the other end wants. So again, just meeting people where they're at, asking questions, being curious, knowing where the problems are. I think that seeing some successes from previous mentors, I have taken that with me and decided that this is a skill that I have learned from somebody that I really, really respect. And I want to not only make them proud, but I want to make the people that I'm kind of exuding that to proud as well. So whether that's my team, whether that's my clients, I carry those experiences with me, and then I kind of make them my own. And then same on the negative side. So seeing things where I've been in a workplace where people have been, undermined or not being heard, or you work so hard to do something and then the priority shifts at like bottom of the ninth and you're like, wow, I just spent 4 months on this. So setting those expectations, learning from things, those two areas have been very beneficial for me.
What are your thoughts on management by walking around? What have you seen in that regard from mentors, and how do you practice, or do you practice management by walking around?
Unique from what my business is. When I started, I had a team that I inherited, and then I started over because I was looking at the gaps, looking at the mission, the vision of everything. And so I had to really, really understand what each role did. I had to know my business in and out. And I think that some people who are put in these positions, at big companies or whatever it is, they don't have that luxury. They don't have that luxury of knowing how to do every role. They don't have the luxury of the history of things and how everything's interconnected. They don't have that. They don't have that boots on the ground. And I have that luxury of having that. And so I do manage that way of wanting to understand the actual issue, what is happening, and not just this high level conversation of, how people come to one-on-one sometimes. Like, no, let's get down to it. Like, we can get into the weeds. I don't always want to be in the weeds, let's be clear, but I can be. And I think that that makes me a unique leader in this sense that I can support people again where they're at, because I've been there too. And seeing how they respond to a situation and how I would respond to a situation, not saying one is right or wrong, but it's interesting. It's an interesting perspective. And I think that it's something that I value so much more now, of seeing how people respond to a problem.
Tell me about your support at home and the role of family in your success.
Support in all aspects is so important, especially when you're starting out in business. And it's something that I didn't necessarily value as much starting out, because I was just like, oh, I've been working my whole life. Like, this is fine. This is just another job. No, the blood, sweat, and tears, literal, that I have experienced in the last 7 months, they've been extreme. I've had high highs and low lows, and early mornings, late nights. And it's all towards this mission that I had, that I just created in my head. Like, I got to do all these things. And when we talked earlier about slowing down, having that support and having those little reminders from people of saying, it's okay to breathe. Hey, Tori, you need to leave the house today. Thank you. Like, I need to. You're right. That's so important, because you don't always have that. And I value that so much more, being in this experience of being a first time business owner and like boots on the ground, just really trying to get things done and not knowing the level of support that I really needed until kind of I crashed. I was like, wow, I'm burnt out already. I'm 7 months in and I'm burnt out. Like, how is this possible? And it's like, well, duh, you're working 14-hour days and you're putting all this pressure on yourself to do X, Y, and Z. And so having those reminders, having that support, and then showing up for those people too. I think that that is part of me that I didn't expect to find. And it has been a bit of a transformative experience in that regard.
Yeah. You mentioned early on, and you told us a lot about what you're great at by accident, just because your words show that. But you mentioned just in a quick hypothetical or just quick mention, like things you suck at. What do you suck at? I don't see it.
Math.
Yeah. Okay, there it is. Which means budgets, right? Big budgets as an example.
Okay. So my previous role, I was in charge of budgeting. It was my least favorite activity, but I did budgeting all year round. Like we literally would finish our budgeting meetings and then we'd have about a month break and then we would start doing them again for the following year. And I that's not my side of the brain. That is not me at all. So when you asked initially about building that team and knowing your strengths and weaknesses, yes, like I never want to be a CPA. Like, no, thank you. I would rather do anything else, to be honest with you. But having the right people and giving you the right advice and hearing them, talking to them, asking questions, all of those things that I'm good at, making it so what I'm bad at sucks less.
Well, you got yourself to proficient. You got help from around you, and you're working to get yourself to proficient. Because I don't think you can suck at the level you're at, and that's what part of what you're figuring out is. I suck at this. I got to get somebody really smart and do the best I can to bridge the gap. Put them in good position, and then they'll meet me where I'm at this time around.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I think having the self-awareness of what you're good at and what you're not good at is something that is really important in leading a company and being a leader in general, and knowing that you can't do it all.
Yeah, really good. What haven't I asked you about? What are you excited about?
I'm excited about all of these big ideas that I had in the beginning and seeing them come to life and seeing how excited people are around me. As I said before, of slowing down, I so often am running at a million miles a minute all the time. And to know that the hard work that I put in, that my team put in, that we have all done together, the the feedback, the support, the reactions from people saying, this is great. We've been missing this. We love this. That matters to me. Supporting people and making them feel good, feel successful. That matters to me. That is such a privilege of being a business owner. And again, something that I knew that I would feel, but at this level, it's bigger than I thought.
You described was it your great grandma as a badass?
Yeah, she is.
I wrote that down on the floor because I think of you as a badass, and I crossed it out in red pen because I didn't want to be disrespectful. But if you're going to describe your grandmother, I'll describe you that way to our thousands of listeners. You are a badass. And I got you in month 7 on purpose, like I said, because you're going to figure this out and it's going to get bigger and badder and all these things. But to get your, not initial, because it's been in the planning stage, but get your early takes on these things and to hear your formative leadership thoughts is really impactful. And you know there's people all around you coming up with you, coming up behind you, some that are even in front of you that are listening to this and hearing your words, especially the humility. I say hope is not a strategy. You say, I'm prepared. It started with diabetes, but I come prepared and it's helped me stay ahead of the power curve. I met you when you were 25 or 26 years old, and I've been impressed by every minute that I've seen from you, including when I haven't handled myself as well. So I appreciate, you giving me the growth and the leeway as well to grow with you. Torrey Sims, you did a phenomenal job on this interview. So grateful for you. Also want to thank Riley Byrne and our fantastic team at Podigy Podcasts. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next month on Together at the Top. Thank you so much for your time. Together at the Top thrives off listeners like you. To stay connected, follow our socials in the show notes and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll be releasing our show on the last Tuesday of every month. See you next time. At Nick Warner Consulting, we exist to coach and consult motivated professionals. I meet with you on Zoom in focused 90-minute sessions, working toward your goals and developing next-level business skill sets. My job is to add value to your organization and your career. To learn more, visit www.nickwarnerconsulting.com or call me directly at 916-765-3576.